It's 8 p.m. Tuesday, April 2nd. The trade deadline just passed. Teams are changing. There's players playing where they shouldn't be. We're going to break it down for you. The top 5 teams that have improved the most this year. We're going to get right into it. Nick, who's number 5?
I'm doing number 4.
Jacob, who's number 5?
Coming in at number 5, we have the Houston Astros. I mean, the Astros have been pennant favorites since the beginning of the year. I mean, let's be real. At the deadline, they were wanting to add another solid left-handed reliever and some more options at catcher, first base, and the outfield. They acquired left-handed reliever Will Smith from the Atlanta Braves in exchange for Jake Odorizzi, Christian Vasquez from the Boston Red Sox for another option at catcher, and they killed 2 birds with one stone, acquiring Trey Mancini, who can play first base, left field, and mashes left-handed pitching. This deadline for the Astros wasn't flashy, but they acknowledged many of the needs that needed to be addressed. But boys, I need to know how you feel about the Astros after this deadline.
I mean, the Astros are the Astros, man. I think if they made absolutely 0 moves at the deadline, they'd still win their division, and all they did is make themselves better. Really, I mean, in the AL, everyone knows it's just going to be a heavyweight fight between the Astros and the Yankees, and I think the Astros did their part to stay competitive against the Yankees and whoever might end up coming out of the NL if they make it that far.
Another thing to note that's really important, actually, with the Astros, before acquiring Will Smith, they had no lefty relievers in the majors.
Do they get Lance McCullers back at some point in the second half? Because that's almost like another trade acquisition in and of itself.
I think they would be fine without him. If he replaces Jose Urquidy, that's the more the merrier, right? Because Urquidy is not elite. But with Javier Verlander...
Javier Verlander.
But with Verlander, Valdez, Javier, they'll be fine if they get McCullers back. That's awesome.
It makes trading Odorizzi way easier to stomach, too.
Mm-hmm.
At number 4, we have the Minnesota Twins. Now, the Twins came into the season with kind of a mixed bag of expectations. On one hand, they landed one of the premier free agents in Carlos Correa. But regardless, here we are on August 2nd, and they are sitting in first place in a very mediocre American League Central. But that's not to say that they didn't come into the deadline with major flaws. They have a mediocre bullpen and no true ace to speak of. While they didn't go out and get a true number 1 starter, Tyler Mahle has been putting together a decent year in hitter-friendly Cincinnati, and he should be able to bolster their rotation nicely. Getting Michael Fulmer should be a nice addition to their bullpen. But the most impressive get for them is by far Jorge Lopez. He should be shutting down games for them for the rest of the year and hopefully deep into October. But boys, how do you think the Twins fare for the rest of the season given these acquisitions?
Do you mean to tell me that Chris Archer can't pitch in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm telling you.
It was very wise of their front office to identify pitching as their need for this trade deadline. They had a very weak starting rotation going into this deadline, and I think Mahle is going to provide a major boost to them. And anytime you acquire an all-star closer at the deadline as well, that's going to provide a huge boost for the back of the end bullpen.
It's important to note that we're talking about the most improved. So while the Twins possibly improve their chances better than the Astros, they are by no means a better team than the Astros at this point in the season. I'm still concerned about their rotation a little bit, and they're beating up on a pretty mediocre division, as Nick said. This should improve their chances, but overall, they're still probably 3rd best in the American League at best.
That's even a stretch at this point.
I think they might be 5th best.
When a mediocre team improves a lot, sometimes they're still kind of mediocre. But they improved a lot. Don't get me wrong.
They did. They absolutely did. Coming in at number 3 are the Seattle Mariners. Now, the Mariners entered the season with high hopes after being eliminated on the last day of the season last year. They had a flurry of trades in the offseason to help bolster their offense. They brought in Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker. The Mariners needed a front-of-the-line starter to pair with breakout star Logan Gilbert and offseason signing Robbie Ray. They were able to land the biggest fish in the sea in Luis Castillo from the Reds. Along with Julio Rodriguez's ascent to baseball stardom, he needed some protection in what had been a struggling offense early in the year. They were able to snag Castillo's old battery mate, Kurt Casale, a switch-hitting on-base machine in Carlos Santana, and a left-handed bat with some sneaky pop in Jake Lamb. Boys, how are we feeling about the Mariners this deadline?
I really like their offense with Julio, Ty France. A lot of these guys aren't playing their full potential, I feel like. They need to just stay in the hunt. Their pitching's gotten a lot better. I think an important thing to remember with the Mariners is franchise expectations. With their playout drought seemingly coming to an end in the next few years here. I don't think this is a franchise and a fan base that's expecting a World Series run now. I think they would be perfectly content with a playoff appearance, and they've really bolstered their chances of making that happen.
I will say, if they make the playoffs, that pitching trio of Castillo, Gilbert, and Robbie Ray, that's a really tough out. You're going to have a tough time scoring runs off those three guys.
All right. The team that improved the second most after the trade deadline is the New York Yankees. Love it or hate it, the New York Yankees were one of the American League favorites pre-deadline. They've now emerged as top-tier World Series contenders with a couple of big acquisitions. Losing Severino was a blow to a rotation that had been rolling in the first half, but they replaced him with Frankie Montas, probably the second best starter move to the deadline. Their outfield was their other weak part, with Aaron Hicks and Joey Gallo getting too many at-bats, and they replaced those two with Andrew Benintendi and Harrison Bader. The Yankees added depth to a team that's already star-studded, which can be even more effective than a single splash acquisition. I think Benintendi and Bader are going to be great depth pieces, and I think Frankie Montas is my pick to be the biggest impacts for the Yankees in the rest of the season. Curious to see what you guys have to say.
I hate to admit it. You know it hurts me to admit it. But the Yankees absolutely killed it this deadline. They solved just about every quote-unquote issue that their current roster had and improved what was already a World Series contending lineup.
I do like the moves that they made, and it did fill their exact needs, which is why it was such a productive deadline. I do have some questions about Benintendi's second half of the season. I do think he's been a little bit lucky, and I've kind of been expecting him to drop off, and he hasn't yet. So maybe he's proving me wrong, but that's why I mentioned that I think it's important that they added these guys as depth. Once you remove Joey Gallo and Aaron Hicks from getting regular playing time, I do think that he can be better than that.
I think you're right, Kyle, in that Frankie Montas will be their most impactful acquisition. Outside of Garrett Cole, you had a rotation of players that were really playing above their expectations. And I think the thought with a lot of people with the Yankees rotation outside of Cole was, okay, they're doing really well. How long is this going to last? And now you get someone in Frankie Montas that I won't say is a little more proven, but I think at least has the natural stuff to fall back on.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that they did trade away Jordan Montgomery, who was a pretty important part of that rotation. But once you look at it, like, they replaced Montgomery with Montas, that's a win. They replaced Gallo with Benintendi, that's a win. And they replaced Hicks with Bader, that's a win. And with that, let's talk about the Padres.
Yeah, dude, let's not even hold them anymore. The Padres are number one, dude. The Padres, man! Let's go!
If you watched the deadline at all, you knew who was going to be number one before you clicked on this video. God, it's not even close. The Padres are... I love every guy they got. Everyone loves Soto. Josh Bell is a great upgrade over Eric Hosmer.
How are you Mike Rizzo, the GM for the Washington Nationals?
Oh my God.
And you give up Juan Soto for 3 playoff runs, not 1, not 2, but 3 playoff runs. The best major league talent that you get is Mackenzie Gore. You don't get a Jake Cronenworth. You don't get a Joe Musgrove. You get nothing of the sort. You get a whole bunch of prospects, which, by the way, I love many of the prospects they got. But you should have gotten Jake Cronenworth at least out of this deal. It is absurd.
And they attempted to take on Eric Hosmer's contract, which might be the most ludicrous part of the Juan Soto deal, which is ridiculous to say.
But assuming that they make it through the wild card, I think they have as good a chance as any other team on the board to win it all. They are that good.
Absolutely. The only thing that scares me about the Padres right now is their rotation. They do not match up very well with the top of the line teams that we had discussed in this video, like the Dodgers, the Astros, and the Yankees.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, though, to get really quality playoff appearances from Musgrove, Yu Darvish, and Mike Clevenger.
And Blake Snell.
Blake Snell, I have less trust in.
Honestly, guys, my biggest problem with the Padres is their bullpen. You're looking at Luis Garcia, who's solid but inconsistent. You're looking at Nabil Crismatt, who induces weak contact. Adrian Morejon is young, talented, but unproven. There's still a lot of holes in that bullpen.
You know, you forgot one thing about their bullpen, though, Jake. And that's that it doesn't matter because they're scoring 10 runs a game. It doesn't matter.
All I want to see is Juan Soto and Tatis going back-to-back at some point in October. That would be... Could you imagine Petco Park if they do that?
And, oh, by the way, Manny's there, too.
Right.
All right, guys, that is our top 5 biggest improvers of the deadline. Do you disagree with us? Well, leave a comment down below and we'll tell you why you're wrong. Or
adversely, if you guys did agree, you should leave a like and subscribe. We're going to keep making more baseball content because we love it. All right. See you guys. It's 8 p.m.
What if you were just like way back in the corner of your room? You're just, it's 8 p.m.
He's facing the wall. He's not even facing the camera.
All right, guys, yeah, go do it. Go do it.